It's the sauce, Alexander.
This is Watts.
Make sure you like, subscribe, Ring General Podcast.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Ring Generals, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do it, or I will get you.
And you're watching the Ring General Podcast. Turn this man around. Turn this man around. Subscribe, like, and comment.
Well, raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.
That's right. That's
Welcome to a special edition of the Ring Generals podcast. I am Nick Nina, and alongside me is special guest. You've seen her before on this podcast, Cindy G. Welcome, Cindy, to the Ring Generals podcast once again.
Hey, thank you for having me again, and also happy 2021, of course.
Absolutely. You couldn't get worse than 2020, right? So it's good that we're in a new year.
Indeed.
So what Cindy's doing on the podcast today is she's going to help me kind of review New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom event. It's one of the biggest wrestling events in professional wrestling. People call it kind of the biggest wrestling event outside of North America, and some even say it's bigger than WrestleMania. This is a huge event. Some of the biggest stars in the world. And it's a two-night event. It's something that kind of inspired what WrestleMania 36 was last year. A two-night event that's very, very creative the way they do it. They have matches that lead to the second night. Very, very cool. And Cindy's here with me to go over it and kind of teach you guys some stuff about New Japan Pro Wrestling. But she's been a fan for a long time. So, Cindy, before we get into the podcast, of course, give everybody your social media. Tell people how they can get to you. Because if you guys want to learn about New Japan Pro Wrestling, please follow Cindy. She's one of the reasons I got into it.
Alrighty, so you guys can follow me on my personal Instagram page and on my Twitter page at simply_C_OK. That's SIMPLY_C_OK. And I have a podcast called Adventures in Wrestling where I do storytelling related to wrestling, where people come and go into their past wrestling show, whether it's pro wrestling or independent wrestling. So make sure to follow on Instagram at adventure_in_wrestling_podcast. Also on the YouTube channel at Adventures in Wrestling by Cindy G. And also the Adventures in Wrestling Storytelling Edition. We're available on all podcasting platforms, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Spotify, Anchor FM, Breaker, and Pocket Cast. And also you guys can find me like anywhere, either nodq.com or on the Bulletcast, where I normally do the New Japan Pro Wrestling recaps. I have a show under the Bulletcast umbrella called Into the Stratosphere. So, yeah, those are my plug.
Yeah, no, so like we're saying, guys, Cindy is the New Japan person. She knows what's going on, and I'd rather have nobody else on this podcast than you to talk about this event. So to start off, we had night one, plenty of matches here. We had God, the Guerrillas of Destiny, who are part of the Bullet Club, win the IWGP tag titles. I loved this because God is one of my favorite tag teams in the world. You'll know the Guerrillas of Destiny, at least. This is how I got into them. When I don't remember which one it was, but one of the members of this tag team was going at Enzo Amore. I believe it was earlier this year or late in 2019. They were kind of having a Twitter battle. That's what got me into the tag team. And then I saw them at Wrestle Kingdom 14, and I see them win the tag titles at Wrestle Kingdom 15. So they're one of my favorite tag teams. So I loved this to at least start the show. Also on the show, we had Kenta earn a chance to face Jon Moxley at a future event, likely an event in the United States. If you guys didn't know, Jon Moxley is the IWGP United States champion. So Moxley, obviously with COVID and all that stuff, was not able to make the show. Would have been awesome to see him this year, but he was not there. We also had Hiroshi Takahashi beat Great Okan. Great Okan is part of the Empire, I believe, correct?
Yes.
That is a group led or primarily with Jeff Cobb and Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay, one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. Speaking of Ospreay, he went on to take on Okada. You guys know Okada as the man that fought Kenny Omega a few years ago at the same Wrestle Kingdom event. very brutal fight this was, and kind of the style in this match was a little different than these two guys normally wrestle, right, Cindy? This is more violent, more kind of not as many flips and kicks and stuff like that, but more of a traditional wrestling match.
Correct. And this is like more of like ending of their rivalry ever since Will Ospreay was used to be Okada's unit called Chaos. And so once during the G1 Climax finale, that's where he actually betrayed Okada. All things because Bea Priestley, which you guys remember her, she used to be in AEW and she's currently in Stardom. Bea Priestley and Great Khan, who happens to return from excursion in the UK, pretty much like came in and of course like assist Will Ospreay to attack Okada, and thus that's where Will Ospreay did form the Empire unit. So this pretty much the Empire is like more of a new recent unit in the New Japan soil for it too. And overall with this particular match, it's like much more a crisp, great storytelling in the ending, even though the fact that Will Ospreay and Bea Priestley has like a really bad rap sheet due to what happened back in last June with the whole speaking out movement, especially the fact that like my thoughts about Will Ospreay when changes completely, like I set aside for it too, but only watch this match just for Okada only, so and see how this storytelling of this rivalry ends. So my God, this was the match of the night, pretty much a match of a year candidate for 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, those I always look at it, and I knew this about New Japan coming in. It's a stiffer style in a lot of these matches, and even with the guys that are the high flyers, we know that a lot of the guys in AEW used to be in New Japan, but a lot of these guys are very, very stiff. I can remember at one part in this match, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember if it was Okada or Ospreay. The stomps to the head by one of the guys in this match were as legitimate as it gets. It was Ospreay to Okada, and it was this. If you like stiff wrestling, get into New Japan. It's very physical. These guys are really, really good at the moves, and obviously Okada and Ospreay, you don't get much better than these two as far as technical wrestling. The ability to just hit stuff, and it almost looks like they don't even try, and these moves are perfect. So yeah, great match. I agree with you, Cindy. This was awesome match, maybe even the match of the night 1 and night 2. But Okada getting the victory in kind of an off-brand match for the two. And the main event of night 1 was Kota Ibushi versus Tetsuya Naito. Naito, you guys remember winning the double championships last year at Wrestle Kingdom. If you are familiar with this event from last year, Ibushi was able to defeat him in this match and advance to the night 2 main event. And that's one of the cool things about Wrestle Kingdom is there are matches on night 1 that lead to night 2. This match was also brutal, Cindy, and you're looking at it after this match in a kayfabe standpoint as how is Ibushi possibly going to go into a fresh Jay White the next night and be able to win, right?
Correct. I mean, it's all based on like how much hard work and dedication Kota Ibushi have been putting up in a well-put fight. And unbeknownst, he actually originally won the G1 Climax of 2020 with a briefcase, but then he had to defend the briefcase against Jay White at one of the Power Struggles tour. And unfortunately, Jay actually beat Ibushi and got the contract. So that's why with New Japan, they actually kind of work things out like, okay, which match they're going to be placing for Jay White. He actually granted to have a match in night 2 of whoever's the champion. So New Japan allowed Ibushi to compete for the double title against Tetsuya Naito for it. So all in all, this match was pretty much a great storytelling. They have been kind of like butting heads for quite some time during like this whole like the Road to Tokyo Dome tour, and the fact that like how Ibushi was wanting to put in like why he deserved to be a double champ and why he deserved to be called God itself too. And with Naito, I know he put up in one heavy hitting fight. And I've got to give a fun fact too. Naito actually dropped the title to Evil. back in last July at Dominion. Of course, Naito did win back the double title at the Summer Struggle Tour finale at Jingu Stadium, which is a outdoor baseball field, which is like a biggest summer event for New Japan itself. First time in like almost 22 years since they had that event at a baseball stadium too. So with Naito, he actually had an incredible run, like being the double champ, like especially during this pandemic of it era too. And honestly, I feel that it was time for Naito just to drop the title to hand it into Ibushi, so that way he can carry on to what's going to be expecting for this year's in New Japan.
Yeah, no, and obviously it's unfortunate Naito was not able to have a true run with the title in a way because of the pandemic. This has happened to guys like Jon Moxley and Drew McIntyre as well in the WWE and AEW, where these guys, you kind of forget what they had done pre-pandemic because of them having to deal with things, post-pandemic. Not that pandemic's over or anything, but us kind of knowing life now and how to live in this different style of life. But Naito, I feel like, was one of those guys that did a good job with the titles and made it feel special on this first night. Now, Cindy, this is the last time we saw Naito compete in the ring at Wrestle Kingdom. What do you think is next for a guy like this? Because he doesn't have a clear opponent after dropping the 2 titles to Ibushi.
Yeah, that is a pretty good question because like right after Wrestle Kingdom, we have is New Year's Dash, which is the aftermath of the Wrestle Kingdom. So Naito actually competed in a 10-man tag team match against 2 members of Roppongi 3K, 2 members of Golden Aces, which is Tanahashi, and the current champ Ibushi, and also Master Wato too. So all the LIJ member, there was no feud set up for Naito. So New Japan is actually like planning on what he's going to be doing it next, who's going to be the next rivalry. But for my instance, for it, I think his next feud, I could think of like one person in mind, which is Will Ospreay, of course, even though he's actually going to helping the Empire feuding with some of the New Japan veterans, which they actually competed at the New Year's Dash. I think that'll be like a good start for Naito to have like his first feud, like for either a short term or a long term for it too. But something may be happening, but who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would be down for Ospreay and Naito. That would be an amazing match. Those 2 guys, great professional wrestlers, and I'm excited about that. So we move to night 2 now. Ibushi coming into night 2 as the double champion in the main event facing Jay White. We'll get to that in a second. So here's an interesting concept. This is what I believe New Japan created this concept. I believe it was a year ago or maybe even less than that. This King of Pro Wrestling trophy. It was won by Toru Yano at this event. From what I get, Cindy, about this trophy is that it's not technically recognized as a title, and that's why it's not a title. It's a trophy, but it's kind of a championship to showcase different styles of matches with stipulations like a 4-way dance or a 3-way dance or maybe something with no disqualifications or something like that. Am I correct about that?
Correct. So the KOPW trophy was created actually by Kazuchika Okada. Like during the press conference, Okada did announce that like he's decided to create a trophy to showcase like the different styles of wrestling with the different speculation too. And so thus the King of Pro Wrestling. And there has been kind of like who made the participate. Like I know Okada did actually compete in one of the stipulation match, which oddly enough, it's voted via Twitter by the fans itself, like based on the stipulation of choosing of the opponent, whether they agree or not. And surprisingly enough, one of the stipulation match that actually Sonata actually agreed on, I think he was on a submission match against either Zack Regina or Taichi. It's been so long ago. He agreed for a submission. Actually, he was submission match against Sho, of Roppongi 3K. And so he agreed with Sho's stipulation match. Everything else he had to vote it by Twitter. Like Okada did compete against Yujiro Takahashi, and one of the stipulations that people voted was a handicap match by Okada, which of course Yujiro had to pick Jaido and Gedo to face off help him, like, beating Okada. Of course, Okada did win the match. So it's all based on like the type of style of it too. And thus, like, the final four was actually El Desperado, Sonata, Okada, and Yano at the Summer Struggle Tour finale at Jingu Stadium too. So that's how they actually determine of the different styles of it too. And of course, Yano, he only defended 2 of the trophies, which one of them he defended against Zack Sabre Jr. in a no turnbuckle pads match. And the second one is he actually defended against Bad Luck Fale for a body slam match. So it was pretty much like a very unique way to showcase like what they can do for it too. Even though the fact that like there has been some mixed reaction about the trophy, saying that it's kind of like a gimmick type. It's like a gimmick trophy just for someone to do, but actually it's like something just for proving to see if there's like more variety of a different styles of wrestling, not just like your typical New Japan Pro Wrestling, like Japanese strong style that we see or heard of before.
Yeah. No, I mean it's ultra creative from New Japan's standpoint, because like you're saying, there could be a guy that's uber stiff, and you could have a guy that's more of a high flyer, and you could create a match if the high flyer has the advantage to his advantage, right? It's something you don't see a lot in pro wrestling, and to have an entire trophy or championship around it is very, very cool. So I wanted you to explain that a little bit too, because that was something that was new to me, and I didn't really get it when I was watching the show, and then I did my research after and was able to figure out what was going on. So moving on with the show, we had Suzuki Gun beat 1 or 8. This was a tag team match for the junior heavyweight tag titles. We also had Shingo Takagi beat Jeff Cobb for the Never Open Championship. This was a heavy hitting match. I mean, really anything with Jeff Cobb in it is going to be heavy, but this took a second to get over after this match was over in the Never Open Championship. Unlike other championships in New Japan, is open for anybody to fight for. So no weight class is technically there to fight. So something interesting there and something different about New Japan Pro Wrestling. The next match was Sonata defeating Evil. A lot of people point to this as a type of number 1 contenders match. And obviously what we're going to see after is possibly Sonata go after the double champion, who I will not reveal yet. If you, for some reason, haven't seen the main event, go check it out right now between Ibushi and Jay White. But so this was technically a number 1 contenders match. Sonata gets the victory over Evil. And he actually came out at the end of Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 to sort of challenge the winner of that last match. The co-main event of this event was Hiromi Takashi beating T.G. Ishimori for the junior heavyweight title. Now, an interesting thing that came out of this match was the broadcast team in the United States was stating that Takahashi wants the main event the Tokyo Dome, wants the main event Wrestle Kingdom in a junior heavyweight title match, because I believe, Cindy, the heavyweight title normally is the main event, and the heavyweight title kind of gets the head moniker at most of these events. So would it be a rare thing for the junior heavyweight title to be defended in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom?
Indeed. Like, it just shows that like there has to be. Can you repeat one more, like the last part of the question?
Yeah, no. So would you see it as something being like, because I don't know, I'm not a New Japan Pro Wrestling aficionado. Someone like you that follows this a lot, would it be kind of strange for the junior heavyweight title to be defended in the main event at a Wrestle Kingdom?
Honestly, like, to come think of it, it's kind of like when you're thinking about how depends on like the storyline, you have to convince the people that it has to be like more of a compelling story. All it matters is just great storytelling. Who is going to be the major star? The junior heavyweight, however, it seems to be more of like kind of like the starter before going into the heavyweight. Mind you, New Japan is very serious when it comes to their weight class to make sure like if in order you have to be in certain weight class, you have to make sure like you have to meet with this certain standard too, and they're kind of like pretty much strict with it too. But seeing with the junior heavyweight at a main event at Wrestle Kingdom, it would be far-fetched strange. But then at the same time, it could be something slightly different too. It depends on like who is the contender of it alike too.
Yeah.
And notable star powers too.
Yeah, no, and that's something in New Japan. It's similar to UFC or boxing, where there are technically weight classes. I believe you can have fights where weight classes don't matter, like this Jeff Cobb Shingo Takagi match that we had at this event, but it's sort of rare. And so to have the junior heavyweight title, which is not the main title in New Japan main event, the announcers were kind of revealing that would be a little strange. But also saying that a guy like Takahashi, who I recognized and I've known in New Japan Pro Wrestling, that a guy like that would be one of those few guys that could main event the Tokyo Dome. Speaking of main event in the Tokyo Dome, let's get to the main event. Coming into this match, this is Jay White's first match or first main event in the Tokyo Dome. I believe he is the head of the Bullet Club, or he's a member of the Bullet Club. Could you clear that up for me? He's the leader. Okay, yes. So he's the leader of the Bullet Club. You guys know the Bullet Club. This is Kenny Omega. This is the Young Bucks. This is all these guys. AJ Styles, Finn Balor from back in the day. That Too Sweet. This is the same Bullet Club that has evolved into this, and Jay White is now the leader of the Bullet Club. He's coming into his first Wrestle Kingdom main event. The only person to ever win a Wrestle Kingdom, or excuse me, a Tokyo Dome main event match in their first match was none other than Brock Lesnar in 2005. So it's a very rare person that's able to win this type of match. Jay White was trying to do it. This ended up being the longest main event in the Tokyo Dome ever, correct? It ended up being the longest match ever at Wrestle Kingdom. I believe it was just under 50 minutes.
Yes. However, the longest match was Okada versus Kenny Omega.
Okay.
That went over, yeah, but close, close enough.
Yeah, because there's 60-minute time limits on these matches as well, and I believe it would have just gone to a draw, correct? If it would have went to 60 minutes.
Well, it depends on like the certain speculation match. I mean, like depends on like the main event. It can be unlimited time too, but unless it's like both contenders are like could not be able to compete, the official has the right to just call off the match and to declare the winner too.
Very interesting, very interesting. And yeah, there was the threat of this when this match was going on, because you could not tell who was going to win this for a while. In the end, Kota Ibushi does end up defeating Jay White with a couple of those brutal knee strikes that he uses as his finisher. And he becomes the double champion. He becomes the IWGP Intercontinental Champion and the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Double champ, as Conor McGregor would call it in the UFC. And Ibushi is the man. Then we saw Sonata come out at the end of the event and sort of challenge him. We saw Sonata and Ibushi in a match together on New Year's Dash the next night, and we go at it from there. Then post-show, Jay White, who was the loser of this match, the leader of the Bullet Club, came out and said that his last night in New Japan was going to be New Year's Dash. Mm-hmm. He then went to New Year's Dash and got pinned really quickly and looked to almost be I don't want to say jobbed out, but just, kind of killed real quickly in that tag team match and pinned by someone that probably shouldn't be pinning a guy of that magnitude. So what's your thoughts? Is Jay White leaving New Japan or is this sort of something of a storyline for him, do you think?
Well, there has been a lot of like mixed speculation of it too, especially people are making like a speculated rumors that Jay White is leaving to go to NXT, which I do not see any reports of it whatsoever, or like coming from like, a sources that knows about the NXT itself too. From the standpoint is that it looks like it seems to be a bit of a work to it too, like taking some time off, but there has been no announcement whether or not he renewed the contract with New Japan or what's going to be happening next of it too. It just seems that like it's just showing off with the storytelling from Jay White, especially from that press conference. He actually showed his true self. He actually broke kayfabe by revealing his real name, of course, which is Jamie White. And to see that like he is like pretty much sad, like, he is going to be ending up leaving New Japan. But then there's so many uncertainties going on too. But I feel that it may be like a bit of like a word, because maybe it's like teaser of like a potential partnership. Like, you know, with the whole AEW and Impact Wrestling situation, it's kind of like a teaser a bit too. But all in all, like watching the New Year's Dash match, like I thought that it's going to be like a Bullet Club betrayal since it's like long overdue.
Yeah.
Especially where Jay White is actually in the same team with Evil, who is the recent member of Bullet Club, and he was the acting leader because Jay could not be able to fly to Japan due to the restriction before it kind of like eased up a bit for U.S. Japanese visitors. And so like it just ends like Jay pinning by none other than Tomohiro Ishii of Chaos, of all people, like in a surprise fashion too. So it seems that like Jay is actually taking this like pretty hardly to show like his great defeat on his somewhat of a final match too. But I feel that we're not going to be seeing the last of him from the looks of it.
Yeah, no, you gotta love it, right? Pro wrestling is surprising. We're not sure exactly what's going on. You hear the rumors about the contract. That always changes things. And yeah, and I get it, obviously we could have some sort of tandem, storyline here like we do with AEW and Impact. Very, very interesting stuff. Now getting to the actual champion himself, he actually had some newsworthy stuff come out after Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. He said he wanted to combine the Intercontinental and the Heavyweight Championships. Now, Cindy, what would that mean, combining two titles that seem to always be on the line at the end of these events? What does that mean, and why would New Japan or Ibushi want to do something like that?
Honestly, they should not combine the title. That's my personal opinion, because I'd rather have the title being separated, because the IWGP Heavyweight Champion has been a very noteworthy and more of a legacy of a title for like 30 plus years in Japan. And then the IWGP Intercontinental title was being established almost 10 years ago, and the first champ for the IC title is none other than, of course, MVP, who is currently in WWE now. Right. So I don't get what's the whole New Japan logic about combining both titles. Maybe they just wanted to something different to make it more update of each of the title legacy. But then at the same time, it's like, so you're not going to be having kind of like a second tier mid-card title. But I'm guessing at the same time, they're actually going to be helping more with the Never Openweight titles itself too, especially with the Never Six-Man tag team titles as a trio title too. I think what New Japan is, they just wanted to focus more as like which one of the titles are going to be getting more of the notoriety. So combining both titles would make sense, but then at the same time, it may be kind of like hurting a bit of a legacy too.
Yeah, because why combine a title that you created 10 years ago? Why now would it need to be, combined? I could understand maybe if it was a title created by somebody else a year or two ago. I'm trying to think of something that's similar to it, but yeah, it struck me as something strange too, because you don't see these big time titles combined. Now I've heard, the possible rumors of maybe WWE combining the WWE and Universal titles at WrestleMania this year. Just rumors out there that aren't necessarily, there's no basis behind them. So you could see something like that happen in WWE, which would be crazy, but New Japan, like you said, with the weight classes and all that, even more strange to combine two titles together when one was only created 10 years ago. So very, very interesting stuff. Now, Cindy, obviously this event ended, New Year's Dash ended. We've gone through the 3 days of having to wake up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning here for us on the West Coast. Now, so what do you want to see next from New Japan? Maybe give me a list of matches you'd like to see that maybe some people aren't necessarily talking about.
Well, I know for a fact that like now New Japan is trying to figure out like what's going to be happening with future events, because they're going back to like the restrictor protocol since there has been a increased number of cases overseas. So I'm not sure what's going to be happening or how it's going to be in the longevity. Especially my concern is about the IWGP tag team titles, because I know God is the current champ. I'm thinking they're going to be defending it over here in the United States for the time being, just to make sure they're actually going to be like getting the tapes filming done for New Japan Strong, especially with that TV deal that they announced, like coming soon here in the United States and in the UK. But I know for New Japan here in the States, they actually created another unit, which is like people are not tuning into Strong, Team Filthy. You guys remember Team Filthy from MLW? Well, there's a New Japan version of Team Filthy, like with Tom Lawler, Danny Limelight, and Jack Kratos, and formerly Russ Taylor, which he's currently now in NXT. So it's just a trio for now, for the time being, too. So there may be going to be some feud that we're going to be seeing, like from God defending the tag team title, and also Finn Juice. They're probably in America by now, since like Juice suffered an eye injury, and Dave Finlay wasn't even able to compete at Wrestle Kingdom too. So there's going to be like more of an opponent for them. Also with the whole like IWGP United States title situation, of course, Kenta has to defend the title, ready to compete against the current champ Jon Moxley. Says, of course, Moxley is not the AEW World Championship champion anymore, of course. So it's probably going to have him to do. At the same time, he's doing double duty with New Japan and AEW, as long as there has been an agreement going on between New Japan and Tony Khan, of course.
Yeah.
Regarding with the rest of the title, of course, they already set like the feud. Again, like I know Sonata is going to be facing Ibushi for the double title, or whether they're going to be unify it or not. And it will be like a short term event. And then Shingo Takagi is actually going to be defending his never open weight title against Tanahashi, of all people.
It's going to be a great match.
It's going to be an amazing match too. And then, of course, the IWGP Junior Tag Team, of course, Bullet Club. Taiji Ishimori, who is no longer the IWGP Junior Tag Team champion, him and El Fantasmo, they're the next challenger against El Desperado and Kanemaru.
Yeah, no, so I mean, some great stuff coming up. And I'm super excited to continue kind of learning more about New Japan and seeing some of these big events like Dominion, like the G1 Climax. We were so excited, the Ring Generals, to possibly go to some of these United States events, because some of them have been in California, where we're based too. So we were getting geared up to possibly in 2020 figure out a way to get to some of these New Japan events. Unfortunately, like everybody knows, COVID stopped all of that. Yep. So we weren't able to do that, but we'll be gearing up this year or next year whenever we can, to see some of these other matches that happen in the United States, and to learn more about these Japanese wrestlers that are able to come over to the United States and wrestle. Cindy, I gotta say that the coolest thing maybe about this entire event was the way the crowd was, and so you had 20,000 or so people at this event. In both nights, and they were not able to have audible cheers, something you will never hear about in the United States or England or anything like that. They could only clap and stomp their feet. It was a very, very cool setting and refreshing almost for pro wrestling, that you were just able to hear the wrestlers, you were able to hear the moves. I remember a couple of the exchanges of punches or forearms reverberated throughout the Tokyo Dome, and nobody made a sound, and it was a very, very cool. What was your thoughts on that? And do you think there's ever a chance a United States crowd could do something like that?
Well, the reason why for that is because they made a COVID protocol to make sure for everybody's safety. Of course, you have to wear your mask, social distancing. There's a disinfecting station. You're not allowed to chant, because the fact that like if you chant, there's like particles that's going to be transmitting. Even if you're wearing a face mask or like having like a filter over with your face mask, it's still going to transmit too. And so that's what New Japan is like, very cautious, and especially with different sporting events too in Japan. So they made a rule that you're not allowed to chant or cheers, just clap and stop. And I think that is a very wonderful idea, because here in the United States, the numbers keep increasing. We're still going into lockdown, and people are not paying a freaking attention to wear their masks, social distancing, all the above, especially with the craziness going on in this world as of now, you guys. I mean, I just wish like certain events like AEW, I mean, with all due respect to AEW, I think they need to stop with the chanting like from the audience, no matter what they're wearing the face mask too. I think a clap and a stop would be perfect, but I know at the same time, it will be weird for some people too, because they're more used to like the whole fan interaction that brings like more of an energy to each of the show too. WWE with the whole Thunderdome with like the fake noise, it's like doesn't even sit well with me too. I know Impact Wrestling, they're still continuing with the Empty Arena show, but then again, it's like dead silent too. But
Yeah,
like
it's weird.
no fan interaction and all that. And so is Ring of Honor and MLW as well. But the way that New Japan is doing it in this type of fashion, they're doing pretty well too. But then again, it's like it depends on like each of the different company, especially with the different restrictions too.
Yeah, no, I just a very, very interesting site. I urge you guys at least to go watch one match from either night one or night two, whichever, and just listen to how the presentation is, how you won't hear any fans yelling anything or making any sounds besides foot stomps and claps. They were even clapping the psychology of matches too. It's very, very cool thing to see for you hardcore wrestling fans. And again, New Japan Wrestling, awesome show, and I urge anybody that has not seen these Wrestle Kingdom early January shows to look up and get ready for Wrestle Kingdom 16 next year, and go follow Dominion and the G1 Climax and all these other matches that happen and all these other events that happen for New Japan. Cindy, once again, I want to thank you for being on the show. This is very helpful to me and our audience of learning more about New Japan. I looked at this a few months ago and said I want to do something for Wrestle Kingdom, because I know there's so many fans that talk about this, and I couldn't think of anybody else besides you to be on the show. So thank you again. And once again, just give your social media really quickly for anybody that forgot or maybe skipped through the beginning to see us actually start talking. Just give your social media and of course your podcast that you just released.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. I'm more than happy to like help you out anything about New Japan Pro Wrestling, because I am the resource guide of it too.
Sure.
So you guys can follow me on my personal Instagram and on my Twitter page at simply_C_OK. That's SIMPLY_C_OK. Make sure to follow my podcast, The Adventures in Wrestling Storytelling Edition. We're available on all podcasting platform, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Breaker, and of course, subscribe to The Adventures in Wrestling by Cindy G, the YouTube channel, so you can watch the podcast on video form. Also, you can find me at the Bullet Cast, where I have my own show called Into the Stratosphere, where I do recaps of like New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact Wrestling and anything like predictions and stuff like that. And also make sure to follow NoDQ.com for all the latest news and rumors in wrestling.
There you go, guys. And for the Ring Generals, of course, like, subscribe, and comment to this YouTube channel you are looking at right now. I am at Nick Nenad. My name's spelled like you're going to see it everywhere, all in lowercase. And then on Facebook, Nicholas Nenad, I believe. So very simple. I make it easy for you guys. And the Ring Generals are at the Ring Generals in lowercase letters on Instagram, and Ring Generals 1, capital R, capital G, and the number 1 on Twitter and Facebook, the Ring Generals as well. You probably already saw some promotion I put in earlier. I'm going to edit in, so you guys always see that in there too. But yeah, so next week we will be looking at all the UFC events, 3 huge UFC events that will be headlined eventually by Conor McGregor's return to the ring, and we will be following everything in pro wrestling, including Goldberg's return to WWE, which I know RKJ Man and I will be super excited to talk about, and I'm sure Cindy, you would love to talk about it too. But yeah, Cindy, thank you once again for being on here. And this has been the Ring Generals podcast. Raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.
Bye, y'all.